Viewer discretion is advised.
We're coming to you straight from the KTY mobile unit, up in Wilford Heights. This is Howard Callens.
And Sally Reynolds.
If you're just joining us, we're in the parking lot of the City Hall building, and for the past hour, we've been covering the case of parents against bullying versus Mercer, Sanchez, Hollister, Stevens, Barkley, Daleski, and Caldwell.
Quite the mouthful, isn't it?
I'll say. This court hearing is the culmination of the PAB controversy that's been plaguing this town for the last couple of months or so. There's a lot of students and parents alike gathered outside the building. But as you can hear, the atmosphere outside is very positive.
You know, Howard, it doesn't surprise me. I've been following this story for a while, and it seems the whole town has shifted its support away from parents against bullying.
And we've all heard about how that group has resorted to some pretty harsh tactics in pursuit of their goals. It's a shame, really. As a father myself, it would be comforting to have something that I can turn to if, God forbid, my daughter ever ran into trouble at school.
Yes. I believe all parents would fully support an organization like PAB, as long as that organization actually helps victims of bullying and their families, rather than become bullies themselves.
Exactly. And not only have they been bullying the bullies, they've also bullied those who oppose their extreme agenda. In fact, one of the parties they're suing today is a former victim of bullying himself, 15-year-old Paul Sanchez, a freshman at Gilroy Rose High School here in Wilford Heights. And as we understand, he's played a big part in turning public opinion against PAB.
Paul Sanchez. I remember the kid. Used to come here with his family.
I still can't believe those idiots would sue Paul, just because he told the truth about them.
To be honest, I don't think PAB has much of a leg to stand on. Like you said, what is Paul saying about them that isn't true?
Yeah. You're right, babe. He's got this.
Python. Why voices coming out of box?
It's called radio. And we're listening to news about a friend of ours.
Hi friend, Mazog. Who you?
So, even though it's already past noon and the Howard and Sally morning show ended hours ago, Sally and I will stay on the air and report on the events here at the City Hall in Wilford Heights, as they unfold. Keep it here on KTY, the Valley's Rappin' and Rockin' station.
Marisi, is Paul gonna be okay in court?
Of course, sweetheart. Your brother is not alone in there. Remember, he has lots and lots of people on his side. And he's fought so much already. He's not ever giving up.
Good.
Well, so far things are looking good.
For sure. All this support is definitely a morale booster. I even just got a text from Tammy wishing me luck.
Hey Paul.
Hey Phoebe.
Just wanted to say good luck in there. And also, thank you, and you too, Simon. You guys really opened our eyes to how PAB was doing things. While their heart was in the right place, their mission was more about getting revenge than protecting students. And I was so gung-ho about the revenge part, that I lost sight of the bigger picture. I just can't believe it took me so long to see it.
I appreciate that, Phoebe.
Good. Now go kick butt in there.
I agree, constructing a proper courthouse would be a great benefit for Wilford Heights. It's a shame we had to step down. That was going to be one of our major proposals.
Well, I'm sure it'll happen eventually. Just not now. Besides, it's good that they're pushing to get this all sorted out today. The town council wants this over just as much as the rest of us.
Excuse me, gentlemen, but it looks like more of our defendants have arrived.
So, here we are.
Well, however awkward this meeting may be, I think we all can agree to put it all aside. Today, we all want the same thing. To put an end to all of this.
Agreed. And I want to be clear. Mr. and Mrs. Mercer. We won't forget what your son has done to our family. But we're willing to put that aside today, and move forward.
That's fair. It is ultimately our fault. You'll get no excuses from us, Mrs. Sanchez.
So I guess this is where we are all supposed to gather?
And you are?
Flint Connors. This is Rufus Dulesky, Dwayne Stevens, and Randall Barkley.
Rufus Dulesky. Fancy seeing you again after all these years.
Have we met, Mr.
Richard Cresty, Esquire. And yes, we have. Wilford Heights Junior High School Career Fair, about 3 years ago. You stopped by my booth.
Yes, I remember. Good to see you again, Mr. Cresty. So you're the Mercer's lawyer?
That's correct. But today, I will be representing everybody standing here in this group.
I have to say, Mr. Cresty, you actually inspired me to study law.
Is that so? Well, that's impressive. I always figured you were intelligent. I'm so glad to have inspired such a great young man.
Well, I don't know if I deserve to be called great.
Nonsense. Your parents must be so proud of you.
My mother was the one who set me on the academic path. She's not with us anymore. And as for my father, the less said about him the better.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, in any case, this hearing will be a great experience for you. It's an unusual one. Normally, as you probably know, we would do separate hearings for each defendant, since you're all being sued for various reasons. But the judge has decided to merge them all into a single case.
That can happen?
It's extremely rare, but yes, possibly because of the limited facilities in Wilford Heights.
Hey Paul, before I forget, I brought the USB stick with the evidence on it. Do you think it would be too late to give it to Mr. Cresty?
I suppose it couldn't hurt to ask. Excuse me, Mr. Cresty.
Yes?
My friend Simon brought along some more evidence. Is it too late to submit it now?
Oh, unfortunately, I'm afraid so, gentlemen. There's a deadline for submitting our evidence, and we've long since passed it.
Wait, but it's video proof that PAB intimidated us at the library. More proof to make them look bad.
Young man, you really need to be mindful of your words. Your friend here is being sued for defamation. Anything we say or do can be used against us.
But the same applies to PAB, right?
I'm not at liberty to discuss that outside of the courtroom or my offices.
You guys must trust Mr. Cresty. He knows what he's doing. His law firm is the most respected in the county.
Indeed, we will make sure that the law is applied fairly to all.
Attention! Would all those involved in the case, Parents Against Bullying versus Mercer, Sanchez, Hollister, Stevens, Barkley, Dulesky, and Caldwell, please make their way to the courtroom.
Well, guess this is it. Let's do it.
Okay, remember. Just like we practiced.
Got it.
Got it.
Come on, Brutus, we're up. Let's go win that case. Is something wrong?
I'm nervous about going in that room.
What for? We got this.
Janet. The moment I set foot in there, I'll be arrested for assault.
What the hell are you talking about? Fernando Sanchez didn't even press charges on you for hitting him.
Not that. I have a prior assault charge from when I was last here in Wilford Heights about 2 years ago. The hearing was in this same building. I'll never forget the judge. Her name's Persephone Blackwood. She makes Judge Judy look like strawberry shortcake by comparison. Anyway, at the end of that hearing, she told me that, if I ever showed up in court before her again, she would not be happy to see me. I think you can catch her meaning.
Don't worry about that. I'll just tell them you're under my protection. They won't do anything. Now, let's go put some bullies in jail.
All rise.
Brutus.
Your Honor, case number 49 on account of the matter of parents against bullying versus Mercer, Sanchez, Hollister, Stevens, Barkley, Dulesky, and Caldwell. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Your Honor, after this hearing is over, WHPD is standing by to take Brutus Smallcock into custody.
No, they won't. This man is under PAB protection. He doesn't go with anyone unless I say so.
Mrs. Sinclair, you will conduct yourself appropriately inside this room or you'll be removed. Now sit back down. And as for you, Mr. Smallcock, you remember what I said to you last time you were here standing before me 2 years ago? What's this? We use words in here, Mr. Smallcock.
Yes, ma'am, I remember.
Good, then I don't have to repeat myself. You're being arrested after this hearing, end of story. This hearing is now in session. We will hear the case parents against bullying versus Mercer, Sanchez, Hollister, Stevens, Barkley, Dulesky, and Caldwell. Now, as I understand it, the legal representation of parents against bullying, the accusing party, has recently abandoned this case, and that Mrs. Sinclair will be representing PAB today.
That's correct.
Mrs. Sinclair, you are also the founder of Parents Against Bullying, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you start this organization?
In January of this year. I recruited several other parents whose children were victims of Harrison Mercer and his gang and formed PAB with the intent of going after those bullies and doing to them
Yes,
what they...
thank you, Mrs. Sinclair, that'll be all. Since Harrison Mercer was the ringleader of this bullying gang, I would prefer to start with his case. Unfortunately, it's been decided that he is not in an appropriate mental state to present himself at this hearing. Therefore, his family's attorney will act without his presence.
Not in an appropriate mental state? I'll show them. Your Honor, I want to call my first witness.
Very well.
I call Eliezer Breckenridge.
Berkovich.
Berkovich.
Mr. Berkovich, please step into the witness booth.
Eliezer, describe the ways in which Harrison Mercer tormented you.
He stalked me around school and around town. Beat me up a couple times. Called me all kinds of names. Gaslit me. I still carry the emotional scars.
And? Remember what you told me last night?
Young man, are you all right?
My representation. Your Honor. Your Honor, last night Janet Sinclair asked me to lie in court.
Oh, you little backstabber.
Order! Mrs. Sinclair, I will not ask you again. Conduct yourself appropriately in my courtroom. This is quite the accusation, Mr. Berkovich.
Yes, it is.
And I'm sure Mrs. Sinclair is well aware of the fact that there are severe consequences for committing perjury.
Yes.
Continue, Mr. Berkovich.
Well, my fellow PAB members, everyone sitting over there, we're all present. On Wednesday night, the 5 of us were at Janet's house for our meeting. At one point, Janet told us that we needed to do whatever it took to get Harrison Mercer's former associates sued and thrown in jail, including lying in court.
Elisa, this is not why I called you to the stand. Whose side are you on here?
Mrs. Sinclair, you will be silent and let him finish speaking. Continue, please.
So, that's what happened on Wednesday night. Then, just last night, Janet and I spoke again. She wanted me to spin a story about Harrison's parents, Ellen and Travis Mercer, encouraging him to bully me, as though this was a whole conspiracy on their part. My fellow witnesses were also to support this untruth.
Your Honor, if I may, I would like to question the witness now.
Mrs. Sinclair, do you have any objection to this?
No.
You may come forward, Mr. Krusty.
Mr. Berkovich, as you stated before, my client Harrison Mercer assaulted and harassed you, is that correct?
Yes. The things he said and did really hurt me, made me angry. So much so, that it drove me to join PAB. And, well, act out.
I see. Tell me, did my other clients, Randall Barkley and Dwayne Stevens, also take part in your torment?
Sometimes. But Harrison did most of it. He was the ringleader. Dwayne and Randy, they just sort of tagged along, did whatever they were told. I don't think they really cared much about the whole bullying thing.
When you were being tormented by Harrison, did he ever seem to be unhinged?
Yeah. It was weird. Sometimes, his eyes, they just seemed soulless, empty.
Thank you, Mr. Berkovich. Your Honor, I affirm that my client Harrison Mercer's actions were a result of his antisocial personality disorder diagnosis. As you have seen in our evidence, multiple professionals who have assessed him support this.
Objection. Mental health is no excuse for being a bully.
Mrs. Sinclair does raise an important point. You will note that Travis and Ellen Mercer have pled their son guilty on his behalf, as he was ruled mentally unfit to be present at this hearing. You will also note that Harrison Mercer has been kept in a detention facility since he was arrested on the evening of March the 1st. And I would like to point out that keeping him in such an environment is a risk to all involved. We propose that he is instead sectioned in an out-of-state mental care facility. Mr. and Mrs. Mercer will cover the cost. Thus, Harrison's well-being will not be a burden on the state, and he will be safely away from the community.
You make a compelling argument as always, Mr. Krusty. But I will require more evidence in order to section or sentence Harrison Mercer.
Of course, Your Honor. And with that, may I present Rufus Dulesky as my next witness?
Mrs. Sinclair, do you have any objections?
Nope.
Mr. Berkovich, do you have anything more to say before your dismissal?
No, Your Honor.
Dismissed. Mr. Dulesky, please make your way to the stand. Mrs. Sinclair, would you like to question the witness?
Yes. Yes, I would. So, where were you when poor Elisa was being battered by your friend Harrison?
At the time, I was in the Wilford Heights foster care facility, Mrs. Sinclair.
And how long were you there?
From March of 2016 to January of this year. And during that time, I had no contact with Harrison Mercer, nor did I have any knowledge of what he was doing. Therefore, I affirm that I could not have been involved in his dealings as such.
Oh, really? And what about your bullying comrades sitting right over there?
What about them?
Don't get smart with me. Answer the question.
Mrs. Sinclair, you will take a less aggressive tone when questioning the witness.
If you wish to question the actions of Dwayne Stevens and Randall Barkley, Then you will need to call them to the witness stand. I cannot attest to their involvement because, as I indicated, I was not present.
But you are a bully yourself, aren't you?
Objection, Your Honor.
It's fine. I'll answer that. But before I do, Mrs. Sinclair, can you please define bullying? Because my definition may be different than yours.
Anyone who is against PAB. And you are against PAB, Mr. Dulesky.
My personal feelings about your organization are not on trial here, Mrs. Sinclair. But to answer your question, no, I do not believe I am a bully. I have, however, wronged people and made mistakes in the past. Just as everyone else in this room has.
No further questions.
Would the defense care to question the witness now?
It would be my pleasure, Your Honor. Mr. Dulesky, have you personally witnessed my client Harrison Mercer bullying other students?
Yes, I have.
And would you say that Harrison ever showed remorse for his actions or concern for others?
No, sir, he did not. Harrison was always acting in his own self-interest, to the point where he hurt me and his other friends. He is self-destructive and a danger to himself and others.
Thank you, Mr. Dulesky. Those are clear traits of Harrison Mercer's mental disorder, Your Honor, a disorder that is in fact genetic. Indeed, state records show that Harrison's deceased aunt, Ramona Phelps, exhibited similar traits. So again, it is clear that Harrison's actions are influenced by a condition that can only be controlled with professional psychiatric help. I reiterate that a prison sentence will not be in the best interest of my client or of the community. The risks involved range from violent acting out to severe emotional harm and distress.
Oh, bullshit. This is all fucking bullshit.
Mrs. Sinclair, I have had it with your disrespectful conduct. Please leave my courtroom.
But I'm representing PAB. You can't do that.
I make the decisions within these walls, Mrs. Sinclair, and I am ordering your witnesses to represent themselves for the remainder of this hearing, and for you to leave the courtroom. And as for you, Mr. Smallcock, you're going with these gentlemen right here. And just to show you that I meant what I said last time, I'm giving you 10 weeks in county jail.
10 weeks? That's no fair.
All right, now it's 11 weeks.
This is stupid.
12. 13. Get him out of here.
I'm not going anywhere with you.
He's running.
Stop, you idiots. He's under my protection.
Man, this shit's crazy.
Good riddance to bad rubbish.
Court is in recess. We will reconvene in half an hour.
Sit your ass down.